All right, welcome to Gay Men Going Deeper, a podcast series by the Gay Men's Brotherhood, where we talk about all things personal development, sexuality, and mental health. Today, your hosts are Matt, Michael, and myself, Callan. And collectively, we have over 40 years of experience in the personal development world. And if this is your first time listening to us, we want to welcome you. We each have our own coaching practices, but in this podcast, we are giving away all the good stuff to you. So in today's episode, we are talking about building better relationships, which is really exciting because if you don't already know, yesterday we released our brand new course. So today we're going to be unpacking all the juicy details about the Building Better Relationships course. And we're going to be answering and exploring questions like, of all the lessons in the course, what one have you personally worked through the most? And what one are you currently working through and learning for yourself right now? What was your favorite thing to teach in the course? And what are the biggest benefits of someone going through the Building Better Relationships course going to be? So we'll be continuing on these discussions on the last Thursday of every month in the Gay Men's Brotherhood Zoom Hangouts, where you'll have your chance to share your own experiences. So make sure that you are in the Gay Men's Brotherhood Facebook group in order to get access to that. This podcast and YouTube channel is listener and viewer supported. So if you really enjoy what we're creating, you can support us by heading on over to our Patreon page in the show notes and contributing to help support the show, or subscribe to our early access option on Apple Podcasts and gain early access to episodes. It helps us to continue making content for you and supporting the community. So we thank you in advance. Also, we want to let you know that the Gay Men Going Deeper membership doors are open. And if you join between now and May 4th, not only are you going to get access to this brand Building Better Relationships course, but you'll also be able to sign up and go through the course live with Michael. That is right. He's amazing. As he leads members through each module over the next few months. You'll also get access to our Healing Your Shame course and the private member only Facebook group, as well as over 35 other coaching videos inside the membership already. So if this gets you excited, head on over to gaymengoingdeeper.com to join us, and we will see you on the inside. All right, so before we jump into today's episode, let's read a review from one of our listeners. In this case, it was a viewer over on YouTube, and it was Vitrock1. And Vitrock1 says, this podcast discussion was amazing. It was for the coming out later in life episode. And he goes, I came out after 40 years of marriage, 3 kids and 3 grandkids. Unfortunately, it was at the start of the COVID pandemic. So I'm just now starting my new life's journey. So far, I have found both exciting and terrifying. Having lived my entire life in the closet, I'm trying to navigate my life as best I can. Listening to these men share their experiences has been so rewarding. I'm so happy I found this podcast and looking forward to the next discussion. Aw, I love that. So good. So good. All right, so we are jumping in with building better relationships today. And the first one we are going to be talking about is, of all the lessons in the course, what one have you personally worked through the most? So I would have to say the one that I personally worked through the most was, oh gosh, like I think for me, it's been communication. It's a major part in the course. And for me, I always had a lot of trouble opening up and communicating with people correctly. I always felt like I was so stuck and frustrated and lost at expressing myself, especially when I was younger, especially dealing with like dad and his girlfriend and the fact that they wouldn't listen to me. And I felt like I was trying to communicate. Nobody was giving me the tools that I needed in order to like progress in life. And so over the course of my life, I've been on this journey of like learning how to properly communicate with people because, you know, as Brene Brown's new book came out, the Atlas of the Heart, it really does affect your life drastically when you're provided with the correct language in order to communicate properly. Like you wouldn't believe the amount of miscommunications that happen simply because somebody's using the wrong word. Because if you come along and you're, you know, disappointed in something or frustrated about something, but you keep using the word mad to explain what's going on, people are going to think that you're mad about it. But if you keep going to like the deeper depths of it, what you're really feeling is frustrated about something or disappointed about something. So it's not really the mad, it's the frustration. And frustration is something that you can work with somebody. You can go, I'm frustrated about this because of this reason. So communication has definitely been my biggest overarching over the period of my life. And then the second part to this question is, you know, and what one am I currently working for or working through in my life? But I'm going to answer that one after. So let's go to Michael and Matt. Let's go first. Let's go to Michael and see what you have to say about this one.
All right. So, I mean, all of them, but because we have to pick one, looking at it, I think the relationship to self, because I've known myself for, 38 years. So, for 38 of those years, I didn't realize I even had a relationship to myself for most of that time. But once I kind of figured that out, like that light bulb moment of, wait a minute, I have a relationship with myself, it was a game changer. And ever since then, maybe like 10 years ago, it has had a huge impact on my life in every which way, not just relationships, but everything. So I went from, someone who really didn't like myself at the end of the day, despite having so many things and all of, like, I was living a life that I should by society standards. I did everything that I should do, and I was a good boy and got a nice job, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I still didn't really like myself. So once I realized, hey, wait a minute, I need to do some work on that relationship. It seems so obvious now, but I think, looking back at that version of me, I was like, wait, like I said, I have a relationship with myself. This is such a meta concept. And that's when I really got into personal development in the first place, and spirituality even. So, I think it has had an impact because I know myself so much more deeply. And I went from a place of self-loathing to self-love. And doesn't mean that I don't like myself sometimes. To this day, I do things and say things. I'm like, oh, Michael, why do you do these things? But I can forgive myself a lot more easily. I have developed the skill of self-compassion, all of these things. And I think it's really fun. I look at it, and it's not just me, but I think, I don't want to give away too much of our course, but as you develop the skill of knowing yourself, you can develop the skill of knowing others and, empathy that much better. And I think that is so much fun for me. I love, and I know you guys do too, people, and just getting to know what makes people tick, what motivates them. I think everyone is unique in their own way. I think it's fascinating. I kind of think of my relationship to self as like, we don't get a manual. We're just kind of born and we have to figure shit out on our own. But then I'm like, wait a minute, what if like I can change things, right? Like how am I built? Who made this brain of mine? How does it think? How do I have feelings? What's programmed in that's like a default setting? And what is something that I can change? So that has been very helpful for me, in feeling a lot more empowered and confident, which has been a big part of my journey. The more I know myself, the more confident I feel. It does, I've said that many times on this podcast, it does not come from anything outside. It just comes from really deeply knowing yourself and aligning with yourself. So that to me has probably been my biggest journey with respect to the work I've done, and really getting to know myself, that I'm, you know and we all are. I'm not just saying me, but we all are. Each and every one of you listening to this, you are a very rich, deep, layered, multifaceted being of like a multiverse inside of you that I am just fascinated with discovering. And I'm always learning new things about myself and about others. And that, by the way, has completely impacted my relationships. I know it seems weird to talk about yourself when we're talking about building better relationships, but the more I know myself, the more I can communicate with others, the more I can express myself, the more I can know what's for me and what's not for me, the more I can share of myself, right? So I can only share as deeply as I know. So yeah, I think that has been my biggest learning in my own life is the relationship to self, which is not by coincidence the very first module of the course.
Well, yeah, and it's important because it needs to be. Because you can't have a relationship with others unless you have one with yourself.
Yeah. And the better that relationship becomes, that the more depth there is to go with in a relationship with another as well, right? All right, how about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think I strongly resonate with what both of you guys are saying. I think in the last few years, my communication has really accelerated. And I think it's because of working within community and relationship to self. Yeah, that'd probably be my biggest one. But I want to, before I go into that, I want to just really acknowledge the excitement that I feel in my body right now, because I think this is really, for me at least, and I know you guys are probably resonating, is this feels like a milestone almost for us, because like I think about when we met Callan 3 years ago, right? And I put out that video, and then we did a podcast episode together, and just thinking about how much growth we've had over the last 3 years, it's pretty unbelievable. And that we've made it to this place. Like, 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, I would have never been able to do a course on relationships because my relationship game was horrible, right? So then now, doing some of the deep work that I did in Asia, which I've spoke about on previous episodes, that was really digging into my relationship with myself and my shadows, and learning how to integrate these parts of myself that I really hated. And I think for me, this course really represents like just how much growth we've gone through, all of us personally, and then together, like as a team. And it's really cool. So I just feel a lot of excitement about being able to offer the hard work that we've put into this course, into ourselves over the last few years, and being able to share that with people. I think it's a game changer. So I'm very excited. So I wanted to bring voice to that.
I love that.
Yeah. And then, so I'm very similar to Michael. So my relationship to myself, like I've talked about this in lots of episodes before, I won't go into too much detail, but just really struggling as a young kid. I didn't really get modeled how to have self-esteem, confidence, self-worth, lots of these things. So I had to I kind of like self-taught in these areas. And I had to undo a lot of the learning that I had around what it meant to be gay, what it meant to be sensitive, what it meant to be these things that I had attributed so much shame to. And I carried all those shadows into all my previous relationships. And I think now I finally really, well, what is it? I'm just going to open up here in the first. So module 1, relationship to self, Michael teaches this one, and it's about self-awareness is the first video, then personal boundaries, and then knowing your values and needs. And I think I've been on a massive journey of learning self-awareness, like who am I, how do I tick in this world, what do I need, all that sort of stuff. And then I started to learn how to set boundaries. Once I started to get clear about what my values and needs were, I could then therefore communicate what I need. And I think for me, I've spent a lot of my life other-centric, doing counseling, coaching, being empathic. Everything is about focusing on others. And that was my family system, right? Focus on everyone else's pain to avoid mine. And I think I didn't develop a strong, authentic sense of self. I didn't have a relationship to myself. I had a relationship to myself as an extension of how others viewed me. And I think that was my downfall in pretty much all of my relationships. It was, always being so other focused. So now I'm bringing my energy back inward into Matt and developing this, like, it feels almost like it's like new. Like, it's not like I'm like bringing old Matt back. Like, this is like a new version of myself that I'm bringing into the world. And I'm doing that because I'm focusing on my values, focusing on my needs and desires and fears and insecurities, all the things that make up who I am. I'm focusing on those, and then I'm learning how to communicate with other people. So I just can't emphasize enough, like, the importance of the relationship to self. And I think that's why we waited this long. Like, in the brotherhood, we've had this space where it's like we don't encourage people to be engaging with other people in romantic ways until they've learned how to start to, have a lot of awareness around themselves, because it'll save you a lot of grief. So yeah, it's an exciting time for us and our business and the community to which we serve. I think everybody's going to benefit greatly from this. So I'm excited. Yeah.
I love everything that you just said, because I just agree with it as well. I mean, both of you, like, yes, the relationship with self, it has to come first. And that's what that's why inside the Gay Men's Brotherhood, we did make it so clear that it's like, this isn't the space to come into to look for a relationship and to like glob on to other people and to try and get that attention. It was about, you know, starting the process of that journey. This is your first step in. This is where you're starting that journey of like, okay, I need to do something different if I want to get a different result. Because if you're going on this journey, if you've been drawn to us, if you found your way to us, there's obviously a reason you're here. It's not just to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and not learn any of your lessons. It's to move through the process and start the journey. And that's why we provide this space for you to start that, to, you know, kind of dip your toe into the water, so to speak. So the second part to this question was, you know, what one are you currently working through and learning for yourself? So what lesson are you currently working through and learning for yourself? And I specifically wanted to put this one in here, this question in here, because I think it's really important for people listening and, you know, for our community to realize that like, we are absolutely not perfect. Like, we have our own flaws, we have our own messiness, and we are learning our own things as well, right? But you don't need to be, and this was a huge lesson just for me in general. I thought I had to be perfect before I could help other people. I thought I had to be perfect before I could, you know, start doing the work with other people. And it, you know, I was doing this work from, God, it's like 13, 14, what, maybe 15 years now. Like, it keeps just growing. But I just kept learning and learning, but I never actually acted on it. I never actually like passed it on to anybody else. And so now I'm learning that it's like, okay, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be doing the work and have a desire to help other people. And, you know, when you know better, you do better. And it's constant growing. So this question was really important because I wanted people to see like what we're currently going through. And so for myself, one of the biggest things that I'd say, I really loved teaching in the course because I was currently learning it, but also had just kind of not finished, but I'd really done a lot of the work around it, is community. Because I was such a lone wolf, and we've talked about this in multiple podcasts, pardon me, and I didn't let myself connect with other in deep community, like in real deep community. And I think that that's been one of my biggest learning lessons. Like, Matt, you were talking about like 3 years ago. Oh my God, I never would have predicted this like 3 years ago, that we would have come together, that we, you know, it's been what, a year and a half, maybe even going on close to 2 years now of the podcast and like the community and everything. And it's just like, I never would have thought that this would have gone, you know, as far as it has so far. And I'm so excited to see where it continues to grow. But that all came from community. And by going through the process of developing that community, that's when I learned, oh, I need community. Because I used to think like, oh, no, I could do it by myself. And you can, but it's just so much harder. It's so much harder to actually like do things by yourself when you don't have mentors, when you don't have people who have gone through it, who can show you, oh, I've been there. I know exactly what you're going through. Let me guide you so that you can get there faster. Like, that's why we do what we do, so that we can help guide people to get to where we, you know, and say, hey, come here and we'll get you there faster. And then, you know, pass them off to a different mentor, a different person, and say, okay, now go learn from this person. And I think that in North America, that's what a lot of things are lacking, is that just genuine community mentorship of like, you know, finding friends and having friends who are also mentors, who also help you move along on your journey. And so the community aspect of, you know, this course was so important for me, because I wanted to also apply like platonic relationships, because we've talked about this before in the podcast as well, is that in the gay community, so often people get platonic and romantic really confused, and they think because they've have these feelings for somebody, like these love feelings for somebody, it means that they're romantic love feelings. But they don't have to be romantic love feelings. They can just be like, oh my God, I adore this person, I love this person. Doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with that person. And so it was really important to show, you know, what's the difference between those kinds of relationships. And then also like the lone wolf, like, oh, I can do it by myself, I don't need community. It's like, you do. We are social beings. Like, human beings are social beings. We literally need other human beings in order to survive. So learning how to integrate that into your system and how to reach out to people. I know that a big aspect that we talked about in here is dating apps, because you see it time and time and time again on dating apps. Oh, just looking for friends, not looking for a relationship, just looking for friends. And I always looked at that and went, what? Yeah, what do you mean you're just looking for friends? Because the energy around that, like, I get, yes, it can be difficult for people who live out far trying to find other gay people in the community. That's logical. That makes sense. But if you're in a big city and you're just looking for friends, like, no, that's your passive way of saying, like, oh, I'm going to already shoot you down before so that I can protect myself. I can put that wall up and I can use that as a cover for what I'm really trying to seek, which is connection. And so learning all these different layers of like how to process this information. I don't use apps, and I certainly don't use them for friends. And I've laid out a whole plethora of ways that people can build community that has absolutely nothing to do with the apps, especially coming out of, the pandemic and all the lockdowns and all the things that we've been in. There's so many people out there who are ready to jump into community. And it's just that fear of that newness, that fear of that, I don't know what to expect. I don't know how people are going to treat me. That holds a lot of people back. And I know for myself here in Toronto, that did scare me, and it almost held me back from joining the gay dodgeball league that I joined, and then also the gay choir that I was in. But I knew I had to push myself out of that barrier if I wanted to build a life for myself here and if I wanted to enjoy life. And it just all came down to community. So that's the answer for myself. I'm curious, let's go in the same order. So Michael, what's the one that you're currently working through for yourself?
Yeah, I think community is a great one. And actually, what you said speaks to a lot of what mine is, although it's a different one. I would say for me, it's communication, but a lot of what you said on community still resonates with that. And they apply very much similarly for me. So if you remember what I said, the one that I've worked on the most is relationship to self. So great. I'm at this point now where if I'm by myself, great. I can have a wonderful day, wonderful time, put me by myself, and I'm off to the races. Everything's fine. But once other people start showing up, that's when things start to wobble. That's when it can be very hard for me to have other people understand my thoughts and then, me do the same. So I think communication has been where I'm at right now, specifically, not just with my partner, but just in general. Like, how do I express what I really mean to somebody who has their own baggage, has their own story, has their own narratives, has their own beliefs, and has their own values? It's really easy to communicate when we're in an echo chamber of ourselves, right? You get it for the most part once you've developed that skill of self-awareness. But then when you add somebody else, it's been very hard for me. So it has been a challenge. And the 3 lessons in the communication module are listening, expressing yourself, and vulnerability. And I would say all 3 of them equally are very important, and probably the work I've done the most lately. And especially when it comes to people that, you love, parents, people that have been in your life a long time, a partner, even friends. Like there's so much baggage, I'm going to call it, or that comes to the table, and it makes it very hard, I think, to express yourself authentically. I can meet somebody new and express myself authentically there because they're new. I don't really have that much baggage going on. But with these other people where there's a lot of love and history and feelings involved, it can be very challenging. So I think that has been the most active lesson in my life. And going to your note on community, I mean, those two go hand in hand, right? Like, yes, being in community is important, but part of that is knowing how to interact with these people, how to realize that, okay, some people you're going to get along with, and that's great. Other people you're not going to get along with necessarily, but that's also okay. And then there's the art of like disagreeing and it being okay to disagree and all of that. So I think for me, that has been taking it to the next level. I always say, like, if you just put me alone in the world, I'd be very, very happy. Just eliminate all the other humans and I will have a great time on this earth by myself. That is my lone wolf. I know that, I see that, but I always like, oh, wouldn't it be just nice to just have this whole world to myself, and I'd have such a great time. There'd be no issues. But that's not how the world works, unfortunately. So yes, communication is that bridge, and it is a skill. And I think it's definitely a very important module in this course because I mean, we can make a whole course on communication, but that's another story. But yeah, I think that's the bridge with having relationships to others within the community, even within yourself, is how do you talk to yourself? How do you talk to others? How do you listen to yourself? How do you listen to others? Vulnerability, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's my answer. I think I'm at a space where communication has been my biggest working these days. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, as like, again, always I can resonate with what you guys are both saying. I'm going to take a bit of a different spin. I'm going to go through each one, and then it might give also the listener an opportunity to understand like which modules, because we didn't really share which modules are in. So the first module in the course is relationship to self. And I would say I'm still working on getting my needs met. I think that's because I'm still learning to understand my needs. Like I'm the type of person that I can kind of see both sides of everything. So I'm like, oh, I kind of like this, or I kind of like this, but I'm really like learning what it is that's authentically what I desire. Relationship to community, as my relationship, that's the second module, as my relationship to myself becomes more congruent and secure, I'm finding it easier to move into community, less triggers, more open-heartedness. So that's been a really big one for me. That's where a lot of my shadow work was done, in community, within you guys, our relationship, within my relationship with Reno and different people. Like there was a lot of shadow stuff that played out, which is beautiful, right? Like that's because now we have this intimacy because we've been through these really, trying challenges, right? And then we've made it through the other side. So we have this, so I've really learned the true meaning of intimacy through that relationship to community. Romantic relationships, that's the third module for me. I think sex and intimacy is one that's coming up a lot for me. I think I'm learning through relationship to self. I've learned embodiment, and I've never been in a relationship yet as an embodied being. I'm looking forward to having that kind of tantric, soul-driven sexual connection with somebody, and I think I'm preparing for that. I'm preparing to have that. One of the reasons I know that is because, in the last 2 years, I've transformed into a demisexual, which I never was before. And so I think I'm learning how to like bring my heart and my soul into connection sexually, which is really cool. Number 4 is probably the one I'll pick. That's the big one for me, is attachment styles. I've learned in the last year that I have a fearful avoidant attachment style. I always thought it was anxious, but I've realized I've recognized my avoidance in a lot of my relating as well. And believe it or not, I'm actually doing this healing work within my relationship with my parents. So my mother also has a fearful avoidant attachment style. And I'd say my dad's more secure, but has like avoidant tendencies. And so I've done a lot of great work with my father. That's helping me heal aspects. And now I'm moving into mother wounding work. And I think that's going to be kind of the last piece that I need in order to integrate this. Because I would say like, I'm probably 75% secure. I still have that 25% of me that's fearful avoidant that I really want to hit home, because I feel like I don't want to bring that into my next relationship, at least not unconsciously. So I want to have a lot of consciousness around that. And then communication, I would say like that's probably one of my strongest skill sets, I think, is just I'm a strong communicator. So I think there's nothing really in that realm that I struggle with. And then conflict transformation, because in the last 2 years I've had so much conflict in my life, I've become a master at it. Like I would say that, and I actually teach this in a lot of my workshops, how to be in conflict, how to be in discomfort, and I'm not really afraid of conflict anymore. So my old people pleasing self used to get really terrified by it. Like I couldn't handle people not liking me, and now I think I've just made peace with that. And so yeah, that's a big one for me, is learning how to just let people not like me, and knowing that it's their paths to themselves, really, at the end of the day, that they'll end up discovering. And I did that discovery work, right? Everybody that I was having conflict with was just highlighting parts of me that I had yet to integrate. And so now I look at conflict as like, sweet, it's a mirror that I can actually gain more self-awareness about who I am, as painful as it is, but it's at the end of the day, you get that treasure in your trigger. So conflict can be quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that also pairs with the community piece, because whilst building community, you're like inevitably going to find people who you just rub up against. You're like, no thanks. And you can't help it. They're going to say whatever they want to say. They're going to be catty. They're going to be rude. They're going to be snarky because maybe they hit on you and you were like, no, thank you. And then they just switched and they were like, well, then screw you. And now they're just being douchey about it. It's part of life. Not everybody's going to like you. So all of these aspects tie together, and it's all of them are so important in regards to relationships, whether they're platonic, romantic, the one you have with yourself, all of it. So totally. I love that. Love that, Matt. Thanks for walking us through those. Next up, we have, what is your favorite thing to teach in the course, or what was your favorite thing to teach in the course? And I'm really excited to share, but I want to hear your guys' first before I do mine. So Michael, let's go to you first, and I want to hear what your favorite thing was to teach in the course.
Okay, yes, I love this question because when I was recording the videos, I did them all in 1 or 2 days. But the topic that I got super, like as I was recording, I was like getting super jazzed about it, and like my energy totally comes through in the lesson, is rejection, which is the third lesson under the romantic relationships module. It's the last one. It's called rejection. And like, I had a really hard time keeping like under 20 minutes for each of these lessons, which we tried to do, because I just wanted to, I get so passionate about rejection. It has perhaps been because, you know, I see so many guys get really thrown off by rejection. And this goes to what you guys were just saying about letting people have their opinions about you, letting them not like you, and that being okay. You know, as long as you're standing in your truth and your authentic self, not that you're going to get rejected, and that's fine. Not everyone needs to like you. And, you know, looking at how I've changed, because what really, my lowest point was when my ex partner left me years ago, and I went through a very dark place, and that rejection is what really, like, like I was going to throw in the towel. Like I was like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do. And so going through that now and being on the other side of it, it's one of those lessons that I think if I could teach everyone to just like put yourself out there and have the courage to get rejected 100 times, I think the world would be an amazing place if we all just authentically knew who we were and had that courage. I'm going to call it courage to do that. The right people will find you and they'll want to be with you. And the wrong people, not that I want to call them wrong people, the right people won't find you and won't want to be with you. And that's okay. There's like 8 billion people in the world. We do not want everyone to like us. It's just not going to happen. And let those people go, because the right people will find you. And there's having a lot of faith in that. So I would say that has been, when I was recording it, I remember getting really jazzed about that one. And I had a lot of fun with it. And then the other one would be also in the romantic relationships, sex and intimacy, which is the second video under romantic relationships. We've been talking a lot about that in the last few episodes here. Again, for me, I think because in my own life, I've seen such deep transformation in understanding the difference between sex and intimacy, and then that beautiful space in between called sexual intimacy. But then knowing that I personally like all three. I like intimacy, I like sexual intimacy, and I like just sex without intimacy. And they're all valid, I think. And it's just about knowing which one you really want and then aligning your actions that way. So before, for me, those two terms, sex and intimacy, were very muddied, very confusing. I thought they were the same for the most part. And now that I can tell the difference, I can meet those needs. It's like I used to think there's only one door, and now I've realized there's 100 doors. And those needs can be met through so many different ways, and it has really opened my eyes. So I think those to me were the most fun, again, because I've had my own personal transformation there.
Nice. And Matt, what about you?
So my two modules were module 4, which is attachment styles, and module 6, which is conflict transformation. I just know for me, it was such a game changer when I learned about attachment styles and what my attachment style was. It just really changed everything for me as far as relationships. I would say teaching, because part of the in the attachment styles, I taught what was it? Attachment. What is attachment trauma? Insecure attachment and secure attachment. Those are the 3 modules. And so I love teaching about attachment trauma because I think for a lot of people, when you can understand trauma and the way that attachment trauma works, that it revolves around disconnection. Some sort of event or something happens in your life where it leads to disconnection, and there's relational needs that go unmet. And when we have those experiences, it teaches us. It basically shapes our brain chemistry. It shapes everything in us. Especially if we have a significant experience where we have experienced abandonment or loss or significant rejection from a caregiver. And I just think that for people that have such an aversion to rejection, which I did because it stimulated all of my stuff, when I understood how that happened, the original trauma that led to me fearing rejection, I could go back and do that work and heal it. And I just think that the relationship to self changes so dramatically when you work through your attachment trauma and you quit bringing it into your relationships unconsciously, right? Because you're always going to have it, but you need to be able to tell the story with consciousness in your relationships. That's what I love teaching, because I know that will make relationships much more conscious and enjoyable and fulfilling when we're able to understand ourselves and then bring that into relationships so our partner can understand us. Yeah.
I just love your guys. I'm so glad that I got you guys to go first, because yours both just like, you're like, what's it called in sports where they like prepare you to make the shot and then you make the shot, whatever the setup, the setup, hashtag sports. Because that was just so good, because both of yours plays in mine, because, you know, Michael, you talked about rejection and how you could go on forever. And then Matt, you were talking about like the trauma, and then trauma in regards to rejection. And for me, the two modules that I taught was relationship to community and then communication. But in relationship to communication or to community, I talked about, you know, trauma and also like internalized homophobia. So the trauma that comes from self-rejection. So if you're self-rejecting, and then that is expressing itself in, you know, internalized homophobia. And then I told this story, this beautiful story about my friend Billy, who he was the brightest flame you had ever met in your whole life. And from the get-go, my hair, when I met him, was just like, this guy is so gay, like too gay. And it was my own internalized homophobia that I was working through. It was my own rejection to myself, that I was just like, what is it about this person that makes me go, there's something going on inside of me? And so I tell this story of the journey that I went on of, you know, we end up kind of doing this competition downtown together. And so we carpooled a lot, and I got to know him, and just this beautiful story of me getting to know myself through getting to know him. And it was just, I loved it. And it was really eye-opening. So all of these things through all of the modules tie together and, you know, come together so beautifully. So that was one of the things that I really loved teaching. That was in the relationship to community, because community to me has just been so life-changing, and it's come after a lot of these other things. And one of my favorite thing that I taught was communication, because I think for you guys, communication is the thing you're working on, whereas for me, I got really good at communication young, because I had to learn how to express myself, because that's the only way I was able to get through in the world, because like I had nobody and nothing else to depend on. So I was like, okay, I need to depend on myself. I need to be able to communicate correctly. And you know, teaching the communication and like the act of listening, and then the art of reflecting back, and then authentic relating, which Matt, you're very familiar with. I just love being able to take people and give them the tools on how they can improve their own life. You know, that's exactly what Brene Brown did with like acts of the heart and like emotions. She's just like, here's all of these emotions, here's all the words, here's what they actually mean, and here's how they can help you improve your life. That's what I did in communication. It was just like, you don't know what you don't know. So by providing you with these tools on how to know yourself better and how to express that better with another person, you're going to avoid those, you know, little nattering fights and those things where miscommunications happen left, right, and center. Because the more you get to know yourself, the more you know how to express yourself, the better you can sit and express what you have to say and go, okay, let's use these tools and let's go through some authentic relating together. And let's, you know, bring our whole selves to the table, whether it's through a platonic friendship or whether it's a romantic relationship, and let's actually just sit and have this communication. But if you don't have the tools for that, you won't know how to do that. Those communications can be the ones that people avoid because they're afraid of them. And so by giving the tools, you kind of lift the veil of that fear and you go, okay, here's a way for you to cross that bridge without that fear anymore. Here's a way to have those difficult conversations that, will be a lot easier because now you have the tools to do so. So I get so jazzed up when I'm, as you guys could tell, I got real jazzed up talking about that one. So I love that all just wrapped around in a nice little bow.
Can I add something?
Awesome. Yes, please.
Okay, so something that I haven't done yet, but I'm super looking forward to is I have the honor and privilege of getting to take the people in the membership through this, should they choose to sign up for the community aspect of it, where we go through each module. I haven't done that yet, and I'm so excited to talk about this stuff with people who are actually willing and eager to do the work. So that's something I got to say I'm looking forward to, and it's probably one of my favorite things about doing this course, knowing that I was going to have the chance to talk to people about this in group. And like we talked about community and communication, these are all super important things. So yeah, I'm really excited about that part, which is starting May 4th, by the way.
Which I'm also excited about that, because I was just talking about the tools and providing them to you. What better way to do it than like with the other group of guys who are also going through it? So everybody's learning together and you're practicing how to do these things before it's like, the dress rehearsal before you go and take it out into the real world and do it out there. So yeah, so I love that. All right, we are at our last question, which is, what is the biggest benefits of someone going through the Building Better Relationships course going to be? So I'm very curious. I think I want to start with Matt this time. Are you ready for it?
I think, so I've been working with a mantra for the last about 5 months now. I am worthy of love and belonging. I am worthy of love and belonging. I want you to repeat that to yourself as you're listening right now or watching, and see what that feels like to say to yourself. I had an epiphany, 5 months ago when I first said that, and I felt a massive block to that phrase. And I'm thinking, holy shit, I've done all this work and I still feel blocked to this. What is going on? And I think I was my heart wasn't open. My heart wasn't open to being able to allow this in, right? That when your heart needs to be open in order for you to be able to receive and give love and to be able to belong, right? We need to have an open heart so people can feel us. And so that was a big thing for me. So I've been working with this mantra every morning. I sit and I close my eyes and I feel it in my body. I'm no longer saying my affirmations from my mind. I feel the vibration of each word, right? What does it say? What does it feel like in my body to say worthy? What does it feel like in my body to say love, right? And what I noticed is I had all of these, whenever I would say love and I was feeling blocked, I would think of the times when I felt disconnection, right? And I felt unloved. And then when I was doing the same thing with belonging, I felt about all the times that I was rejected, right? And that's where my mind was defaulting to. And it wasn't until I started to bring forward the possibilities and the experiences that I've had where I felt loved, where I felt like I belonged. And those started to come to the forefront. And that's when I started to be able to feel. And then my heart started opening, right? And I think that the reason why I shared that story is because I think that that's what I think people are going to get from this, because this is the work that we've done. We are offering energetic transmission, right? People, they're going to feel the work we've done. It's energy, right? Sure, we're bringing words to concepts, but what you're actually going to get in this course is you're going to come in and you're going to feel the energetic vibration of the work we've done, and we're transmitting that to you. We're showing you the work we've done so you can feel what it feels like, and then it'll make your transformation a lot easier, in my opinion. Which is why working in community is so effective, because we're also benefiting. Sure, we're being triggered by people's bullshit, but we're also benefiting from people's love and their open-heartedness, and right. So you get both sides of the coin. So I just think that that's the benefits people are going to get, is they're going to feel a lot more open-heartedness, a lot more understanding of their fears and how their fears are being played out in relational dynamic, and fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of judgment, criticism, all of those. You'll see clearly which areas of your life those are showing up in, so you can start to work on them, right? Because otherwise it's just this big murky messiness that you're just not sure why relationships scare the shit out of you, right? That might be where you're at right now. But what we'll help you do is we'll help you kind of separate it all so you can kind of see, this is the area. Yeah, this is the spot I need to focus on. And then once you start focusing in that spot, things will improve for you. Yeah.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. It's
Mhm.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, very well said. I think that's a really good point, Matt, about when we think about anything that we want, there's always going to be this subconscious, that which we don't have, right? So if we want a relationship, that might be one thing, but it's going to come energetically with all the other stuff that maybe we haven't worked through. So that's a very solid point.
Yeah.
I would say for the question is, what are the biggest benefits of someone going through building better relationships? Okay, so I'll speak to my experience. I think for anyone out there who, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you do like personal development to some degree. You've probably read a lot of books, you've probably listened to lots of episodes of this and other podcasts, you probably watch lots of YouTube videos, right? Which is great. I think the benefit of relationships is that it takes you onto the main stage and out of the dress rehearsal, going to Callan's analogy. Doing the work on your own is great. It's valid, extremely valuable. We talked about relationship to self. Yes, absolutely. But once you go out into the world and have to deal with people, for better or for worse, that is where you, in my opinion, your work, the rubber hits the road. It can completely up level. So yes, while doing the work on your own is valuable and valid, when you're actually in that arena, doing the things, meeting people, putting yourself in harm's way of getting rejected, putting yourself in harm's way of being vulnerable, finding out how to properly say communicate your needs, all the things that we talk about here. Yes, you're going to get triggered, and yes, that's a good thing, I would say, because when you have the tools, which we give you, when you have the tools to get triggered and kind of learn what that means about you, that completely up levels the way you show up in the world going forward. So I think that the form of relationships, and not just romantic, but any kind of relationships, is where you learn the most. It is the most bang for your buck in terms of personal development, because and it's probably the most uncomfortable, at least for me, it's been the most uncomfortable, yet the most beneficial in the long term. So yeah, once we add humans to the mix, right? It's like I was saying earlier, once you add other humans to the mix of being in this world, that's where shit really hits the fan. You're not just reading a book anymore and highlighting the parts that really matter to you. You're actually going to have to practice this stuff. So things like communication, vulnerability. Vulnerability is a great example for me. Obviously, intellectually, I know vulnerability leads to more intimacy. How many times, even to this day, do I have I'm like standing on vulnerability's door and I'm like, oh shit, this is one of those moments that if I really want to connect with my partner, for example, I really need to be able to say this. And like to this day, the actual doing it is completely different than knowing it. And I know it. And there's still days where that fear comes up. So yeah, vulnerability, conflict, empathy, patience, understanding, unconditional love, right? That's a tough one. We all want unconditional love, but really, like, have we thought about what that means? Unconditional, that's a tall order. But this is the stuff of life. Relationships are, I think, why we're here. It is what makes being a human such a gift. I do think, as much as I joke about wanting to be here alone, I do think at the end of the day, when people are on their deathbed, they're thinking about the people that made their lives worthwhile, family, friends, laughs, good times, experiences. People are going to be part of that. So it is why we're here. And I think we just need to get out of our own way. And the course is exactly what that does.
Beautifully said. I love that. All right, what do I think? Well, first of all, I just want to say that for anybody out there thinking like you're watching us and you're like, oh, these three guys, like, they have something I don't have. Like they go through, life is easier for them. I just want to say, I literally asked somebody out last week and was rejected, like full blown, like rejected. So it's like we are going through it just the same as anybody else is going through it. I mean, they were in a relationship, I didn't know, but like I had to be vulnerable. I had to like take it upon myself and go, hey, I'm going to miss 100% of the shots that I don't take. And because I'm also looking into that, moving into more of the romantic relationship energy, it's just like, I need to start taking those steps. And I took, and it was just like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, like obviously, but my old self, before learning all of these things, would have been devastated, and I would have made it a me fault. I would have made it a me problem. Even though he's in a relationship, it still would have been my fault somehow. But having learned a lot of this stuff, I could now walk through that with grace and be like, it's not a me thing. It's just a situation thing. It is what it is. So as far as the course, I think some of the biggest benefits are going to be guidance and clarity. You know, we've gone through a lot of this stuff and we continue to go through this stuff. And so we're inviting you in to guide you through this, because I personally love working with mentors and guides, because it's like, if somebody else has already done it, why reinvent the wheel? Like, if they know more things that I do, I'm going to go in that direction. And then clarity, the clarity of, you know, things that are working for you and the things that aren't working for you, and also your blind spots, because we don't know what we don't know, right? One of my favorite quotes is Brene Brown, and it is, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So by going through the course, what you're going to get is a lot of freaking clarity around your relationships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships, the relationship you have with yourself, and also clarity around communication and, you know, the tools in order to help you in all of these regards. So those are probably the biggest things that I'd say people are going to be getting from the course. So in saying that, we have come to the end of today's episode. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we send everybody off today?
Well, we'll see you on May 4th for the workshops. Hopefully. Join us.
Right. All right. So if you have enjoyed today's episode, please give us a star rating on Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to it. Make sure you subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. We release new episodes every Thursday. Make sure to join the free Gay Men's Brotherhood group. That's our peer support group, where we can help you go through all this kind of stuff, and a bunch of other guys as well. And if you do want to go through the course like we've been talking about with Michael, make sure you go over to gaymengoingdeeper.com. It'll walk you through signing up to the membership. It'll give you all the good stuff. And then inside the membership, on the membership website, in the membership hub, right at the top, it'll show you how to sign up for going through the course with Michael. So that's very exciting. But if you're not interested in that and you don't want to go through it with anybody else, but you still want the information and the knowledge, you can go to the course by itself. That'll be in the show notes as well. So have the best day ever. I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode, and we will catch you next time, everybody. Peace, love, rainbows. Bye.